All right, so here is a picture of my whole sheet of paper, my one vanishing point and my other one on the other side, and how far I've gotten with the drawing. The important thing to note on this, since some of the video that I created, the sound didn't work, so I'm going to go through real quick what I did. I started with taking a look at, this is what I'm looking at. The primary focus of my drawing is the one on the left. And I wanted to get the top of the building in, so I started with the top to make sure, and my format is vertical, otherwise known as portrait. And I figured out right away that, let me back up a little bit. The thing that is important to note about these kinds of drawings is that sometimes, even though we have this bigger piece of paper, we still can't get all of vanishing points in the drawing. So that's just life, because if we were doing this without using sight measuring, we would be able to make sure that the vanishing points would be working for both angles. But in reality, you know, it's a big world out there, and what has ended up happening with this drawing is that the only vanishing point that worked was the one on the left. So this is something that's important, I guess, as far as me showing you, is that it doesn't always work. You're just going to have to follow the angles and the sight measuring in order to get the both vanishing points to work correctly, the imaginary vanishing point, shall we say, if that makes sense. All right, so I think what you can see here is that everything from this vanishing point is corresponding, and how all of the windows are going down like this. This is the problem here, is that the vanishing point is very far away, and so that's why it doesn't really, the angles don't shift that much, and so it was actually very difficult for me to see. So let's try it here. You can see that the bulk of the lines are not really going down to a vanishing point, because I think that I don't know exactly why that is. There must be some technical reason, some physics thing or something about the world that I don't know about. I just know what I see, and I know that I can't draw what I don't see, and that I don't see any particular angles on this side of the building. So I have to draw what I see. So there you have it. If this happens to you, don't stress about it. I think that's the most important part. There is a little bit of an angle. I don't know if you can tell based on this. Let's see here, and then here. Okay, so I did find that angle, and it just slightly goes. I actually might have to correct some of these because it does start to shift, and as I go down here, you'll see that it's going this way. So there is a very, very, very slight from the top of here going down, 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 down over that way, and then from here, this one that's going to go up. Who knows where that vanishing point is? It's probably a mile away. All right. The other thing that I did was, because this is so small, I ended up counting the windows and doing a mathematical calculation based on starting from the biggest one that I could see, and then trying to figure out what the ratio was, backing it up into the little parts. As far as values go, I was using a method where I was trying to create as straight of lines as possible by using a straight edge to get those lines, because I'm trying to get the texture of the building, which I think if you look and see what I'm looking at there. All right. I was working on how do I draw trees, because there's a difference in style, as you can see, between drawing the building with its straight angles versus the trees. So I was working on how do I find a way to teach you how to indicate trees when you can't see all the leaves. And this is this diminution in this aerial perspective that I was talking about. So what you do is you take a look at the bulk of the foliage. As an example, okay, so see how I can see in between and I see those little holes? I'm trying to find the general shape of that. I can't do leaves because there's just not enough information for me that I'm looking at because this is so far away. But I can look at the clumps and see what the shapes of that is. And that is what I'm doing, is that here is the blue sky behind, and there's that. I try to, different trees have different sorts of shapes, so I'm looking at that. And then what I do is I go in and start to look at the darkness behind. This, if you look again, notice that the tree that is in front of this house structure is a little bit brighter than the one behind it. So what I have done is I have started to shade in right here that this is darker than this. If I can find trees that are going to be close enough, right in here my pencil strokes are starting to get a little bit more sporadic and a little more energetic because they're closer. I don't know if I'll continue to keep it that way or not, or edit that. That's another way of showing a little bit more interest, and also the fact that I can see a little bit closer. So where was I when I was doing that? That is right in here is where I was doing some of that. I will probably continue to edit that. I do see a tree that's in here, and here is my tree. I saw at the time a shadow. Shadows might have shifted a little bit, but generally the shadow's underneath the limb. So I'm doing that. This is where I can be a little more gestural in my approach, the technique that I'm using, because this is more of a organic form. And then I went back to the technical drawing of the roofline, and I was just beginning to do this right here, where I was seeing that it is following probably the vanishing points up this way off there somewhere. What else can I show you? So it's a lot of the same techniques that I showed you from before in the beginning, is that it's all about ratios, it's all about proportions, this versus that, and continually adjusting, a lot of erasing. I was showing here about the difference in pencil marks, how light you can get. This is a 2B pencil, and so if you do a very, very light stroke, then you can erase that a lot easier, and then you can keep going over. That is, if you take a look at some of what I'm doing here, you can see this is where I'm just, when I'm going in here, I am first making a dot and then double confirming what the ratios are before I do my perpendicular lines down. All right. I am looking at the shading. The ceiling has to follow the perspective. This is the railing. I'm going to always follow cross contour when I'm doing my value. What else? Here is a reflection of the shadow of the glass, and so I'm going to try to indicate that. So I'm looking at the surface quality of some of these things as I go. And that's where I think, if I zoom in here, you can see the quality of the glass, that mirror reflective, just like we saw it in the cups and things like that. We can look at that. My lighting has shifted since I started. It was over in the left, now it's gone towards the right, so that will change things. That's what the impressionists were doing. So as you continue working on something, you have to remember that your shadows are going to change as you work outside.